Good morning. I'm WaywornWyrm, and welcome to my channel, and welcome to episode 6 of Space is Wide and Good Friends Are Too Few, the first battle of the Ross 128 jump point. Captain Stefan Willman tossed his pencil down on his desk and rubbed the bridge of his nose. In February, a test went through the entire upper staff of the Earth Federation, and apparently he had scored the best on it. Turns out, the test was to see who was skilled in the language of the Ross 128 aliens, and scoring the best on it came with a commission and being promoted from lieutenant commander all the way up to captain, skipping commander entirely. The group he was put in charge of consisted of 3 commanders and 1 colonel. Commander Milford Zuck was one of his men, and also held the distinction of being the commanding officer of the ship that first discovered an alien ship, and an alien world for that matter. It was now the end of July, and not only had they not cracked this puzzle, but they had made very little progress. There were movies about this event that had been made for literally centuries before now, but the only one that really came close was an old film called The Arrival. Everything about this race was so absolutely foreign to Stefan and his team that they were only just now, after over half a year of working on this, identifying what they were looking at to begin to even attempt to decipher it. In fact, he was reminded of an old astrophysics quote his crazy uncle used to sometimes say: "To bake an apple pie, you must first create the universe." He had always thought that it was some sort of nonsense, or at least pedantic bullshit. But he thought that now he was starting to understand what was meant by it. To decipher the language of these aliens, he first had to figure out what the language was. What were words and what was just noise? Also, as he had picked up that there might be an inherent bias. There was no telling how much, indeed if any, of the language of these aliens came from sound. Maybe they used smell or sight or taste or touch or some other means of communication that he couldn't even begin to fathom because he didn't have the right sensory organs to even think about it. Looking at his clock, he realized that he had been wrong. It wasn't the end of July. It had been August for almost an hour now. It was going to be a long night. He got up and walked into the common room to get a cup of coffee before going back to his desk and staring at the graphical representations of the data the ball had picked up from the planet. He was working under the assumption that this was some sort of TV-type analog. Captain Oscar Holloway looked at the plot zoomed in to about 100,000 kilometers around the Ross 128 jump point. A ship had just jumped through. The computer had, fittingly, named its class the Audacious. It was a 2,850-ton ship with a thermal signature of 108, putting the estimated speed at 1,894 kilometers per second. Given what had been gleaned from both Earth Federation knowledge and from the records of the Trafalgar, his task group Bunker Hill, had been picketing the jump point at Ross 128 for the last few months just in case this happened. And here it had. He knew exactly what he was going to do. The ship was small enough that it would stand no chance against his 3 ships, and this audacious ship had entered the edge of humanity's home. It would not survive long enough to reach the jump point again, only a few thousand kilometers from where it currently sat. He would stop it. At 005136, sensor logs from the Acheron and the Ariel would confirm that the audacious 001 was capable of at least a speed of 1,894 kilometers per second. They would also confirm that the Audacious was setting a course tangential to the jump point, 34,000 kilometers away from it, and it was moving slightly out of system. Later plotting of its course indicated that it was most likely looking to go to the nearest gravitational survey point. Sensor logs would also show that at 005146, 14 of the 15 near ultraviolet lasers that made up the weapons of the task group Bunker Hill would hit their target. Only a single gun from the Ariel would miss. It would also show that it was massive overkill. All 5 of the shots that hit from Ariel, all 3 of the shots from the Bunker Hill, and 3 of the 6 shots from the Acheron hit an exploding ship. The first 3 shots from the Acheron were enough to destroy the Audacious, which had minimal armor. Atmosphere started leaking from the ship as soon as the first laser hit, and subsequent laser hits would stream more atmosphere. Captain Holloway ordered the life pods they detected to be picked up and brought back to Earth. As they headed back, the task group Cani would be dispatched to take their place. There would be 13 survivors who would be interrogated on the way back to Earth. Captain Holloway had created a massive problem, and no one in command was sure how to solve it. He had acted without orders, but he had acted fast and decisively. His prisoners would be helpful to the Wilmon team. That would be without a doubt. And it was pointed out that many thought his actions, if not desired, then at least expected. If not, why was he chosen for this picket duty? There were 4 task groups, and the Bunker Hill was the one who got the assignment. His combative personality was well known at Fleet HQ. The next day, every news organization left on Earth ran stories about the Battle of Seoul, despite it just being a minor skirmish between a total of 4 ships at a jump point that lasted 15 seconds from first contact to the end of the battle. Not even mentioning that jump point was one of the farthest away from Earth at over 6 billion miles. In future days, after the second battle of the Ross 128 jump point, this would be retroactively named the first battle of the Ross 128 jump point. From first contact with the People's Republic of Anarch Zeta to the establishment of full communications took 1 year, 1 month, and 5 days. On 1st March 2102, a message crafted by Captain Wilmon was sent through the jump point toward the occupied planet. A few hours later, a message came back that was easily translatable to Stefan and his group. At first, it was true he had been aghast at the skirmish that had happened, but the POWs had really helped. His first notable breakthroughs started happening after a couple of months of trying to talk with them, and they were invaluable in testing out ideas. The historic message, the one that would go down in history, was merely a formality. He had had full conversations with the POWs prior to 1st March, and he knew much of the basic information contained in the message. But it was important to send the message and get the reply. The most puzzling thing to Stefan was the fact that the aliens seemed to know about the disappearance of the audacious 001 and didn't seem too bothered by it. What would have been a huge international incident had similar happened on Earth was apparently no big deal to these aliens. They accepted that they had violated human space, and when the ship did not immediately turn around after noticing known ships of a different species, the humans reacted in an understandable way. Stefan was really interested in talking more to the POWs about this point. However, the next day, the POWs were not where they had spent the last several months, and Stefan would never see or hear from them again. Thank you so much for listening to episode 6 of Space is Wide and Good Friends Are Too Few. Please tune in next Sunday, this coming Sunday. That would be on September 16th for the return of The Curse of Strahd. We are done with our 2-week absence. Thank you.